Hey, we're back. This is John.
It's Paul.
And it's Eric.
That is What If Geeks. And we are here to review the show that finally came about with our namesake. It came out after us. We did it first. We're going to review the first 3 episodes of Marvel's What If animated series found on Disney Plus. So hopefully you guys have watched that, at least the first 3 episodes. And then we'll review 4 through 6 in a couple of weeks. So that way, at least you know kind of what we're going for. 3 episodes at a pop. So I guess basically we can do the setup real quick. What if, the reason I named this podcast What If Geeks is because it's one of my favorite comic books of all time. It's an anthology series from Marvel and explores the different realities, like if something happened in key moments in Marvel history had played out differently. So you got in the comics, you got stuff like if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, or if Hulk killed the whole Marvel universe, or all kinds of shit like that. And it was a really cool series. So they took that concept and they applied it to the MCU, but in an animated form. And they made 23 episodes of this show to coincide with the 23 Marvel movies that had come out already. As we can go a little bit more of the history of the comic, they originally printed 47 issues between 1977 and 1984. Damn, I feel old. And a whole bunch of additional volumes that came out over, sporadically over the years. Volume 2 was 115 issues from 89 to 98. 3, 4, and 5 were 6 issues each, printed in 2005 to 2006. And volume 6 had 5 issues from 07 to 08. And that one had the paperback anthology with 3 different stories. I've got a few of those on my shelf there. And then now they're doing the animated series. So we've got the first 3 episodes. Episode 1 was What If Captain Carter were the first Avenger? Then episode 2, What If T'Challa became Star-Lord? And then episode 3, What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? So, Eric, do you want to take over from there as to what they've been doing with the series?
Yeah, sure. So this premiered on Disney Plus August 11th. They release 1 new episode every Wednesday. Each season is going to have 9-ish. So we're on season 1 now. It's actually, at the time of this recording, there's been 5 episodes released with another one coming in a couple days, even though we're only doing the first 3. And then they've already greenlit a second season. There's another 9 episodes in that. This is actually directed and executive produced by Brian Andrews, who is actually not really a director. Kind of interesting. So he's been a lead in the art department for quite a long time, and he did sort of like digital animation and stuff for the Avengers movies, for Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy's movies, Ant-Man, and then he's also done other Disney stuff like Clone Wars. And then on top of that, he previously did the Batman animated TV series, Samurai Jack, Priest, some other stuff. But this is an art guy, right? He's an animator, basically. So to put him in a director role, it's not surprising or anything, but it is interesting that they picked sort of a, somebody that just didn't do this before. And
it's a little different.
And he does have some previous directing roles, but in things most of us probably don't appreciate. The Jackie Chan Adventures animated series and the Men in Black TV series, animated TV series thing that they had. So nothing of note. But anyway, without going too far ahead of ourselves, I mean, I think he's actually done a pretty good job with this, but we can talk about that in a minute. Yep. The head writer for this series is AC Bradley. He also is not really an MCU guy. He's done writing mostly for DreamWorks for their Tales of Arcadia. They've had a couple different like mini series that went along, like Troll Hunters, and there was another one. But again, not really an MCU guy, so sort of new territory. But where this show is really impressive is in the voice acting. And I wrote this long list up, but I will just say there's only a few new voices you wouldn't recognize here, right? So the Watcher, who is basically the narrator for every single episode, is played by Jeffrey Wright, who plays Bernard in Westworld, if you guys have seen that, or if you're into Hunger Games, he plays BT, one of the Resistance folks. Captain America got swapped out. So Josh Keaton plays him, who did Shiro on the Voltron animated series. Tony Stark is swapped out with Mick Wingert.
Here's what I thought was. Let me stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only reason I stopped is to sort of, if you take them in the order of the shows, right? Like, I didn't expect that they would get all the Marvel actual actors to do the voiceovers, right? I sort of assumed that wasn't going to happen, and so episode 1 starts, and it's Haley Atwell, right?
Yep.
Who was Agent Carter, and then as you're going on, and as the credits are happening, right? Some of the names are in there, and you're like, Sebastian Stan, really?
Yeah, I know.
Right, you start going through it, you're like, wow, they really did get them all. And then you go through, and it's everybody's in it, right? Was it Neil McDonough who plays Dum Dum Dugan's in it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't put him on the list, but you're right.
They went deep.
They got the guy who played Howard Stark in the movie, plays Howard Stark.
Right.
The only person I think in that, Stanley Tucci plays the Professor Erskine.
Yep.
Like, they got everybody. They got the guy who plays ends up being the head thing. Not MODOK. The squirrely little German guy.
Yeah. Oh God, why can't I think of his name now? You just made me draw a blank.
Yeah, sorry.
It'll come to me.
Yeah. I mean, they got Seth Green to come in and do Howard the Duck again.
Arnim Zola.
Arnim Zola, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so they got the guy who does the voice in Endgame, who does Red Skull.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Hard, yeah.
And so you're like, the only person they didn't get is Chris Evans, who's apparently just done doing Marvel stuff.
Well, and Robert Downey Jr. But that doesn't surprise me, because those are like your two biggest names in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? So it probably would have it's cheaper for them to go a different route, right? With those two.
Right. But you got Sebastian Stan, you got virtually everybody else.
Right. That was the more surprising
Captain American stuff.
What they're missing is numbers 2, 3, and 4 on the list you guys have, which is they don't have Captain America.
Right.
They don't have Robert Downey Jr. doing Tony Stark, although they did get the guy that did Tony Stark in the Avengers Assemble animated series. So even though they couldn't get number 1, they went to number 2. And then they didn't get Scarlett Johansson to do Black Widow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but outside of that again, it's less surprising to me that those guys didn't show up, as it is surprising the hell out of me as to how many people are in this damn thing.
Here's the one that did surprise me: is you're watching episode 2 and you're like, that guy's doing a pretty good Chadwick Boseman imitation.
Yeah.
I thought there's no way they have him. And then you watch
when we watched it, Heather was like, he sounds just like him. I said, it is him. She goes, is that the last thing he did? I said,
that is the last thing he did.
He did.
And you know what's great?
And she was like, that's kind of sad.
He's credited for 5 of the 9 episodes this season. So he must have done quite a few before he rolled out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Forever.
It's
You got that one out early.
Wait till we get to the goodbyes.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Like, I didn't expect that. When I watched the previews, I was excited for the show, but I never thought they'd have the actual actor voices.
Yeah.
And this is going to get a little early when I was going to bring it up, but I always have a hard time with the animated series because it's not just they look different, it's different style. The voices are often different, and all of that together sort of breaks continuity and interest for me. This I was hooked on from the beginning, and I think anyway, I have a knack for hearing famous actors' voices, and it was like everyone, I'm like, oh my God. Like, how did they get all these people to come do this? And so I think that helped a lot keeping my interest in this.
I think the other thing before we get into any other spoilers or anything, I think the style of animation is really cool.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it's a. I looked it up. It's called cell shading.
Cell shading. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, it's not 3D animation. It's not 3D the way like you mentioned one of the actors is from Voltron. Like it's not Voltron. It's not the way He-Man, the new He-Man is on Netflix.
Right.
It looks like a comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has a feeling too. Like, have you guys seen any of that rotoscoping stuff where they film live actors and they kind of make it look, cartoonish, comic bookish afterwards? It has that feeling to it, even though it's hand drawn.
Yep. All right, cool. So let's real quick before we get into the spoilers. I think we've already covered most of it, but first impressions based on the trailers and everything.
So I'll go first because I was not all that excited. I know it's the podcast namesake, but animated stuff to me is usually like, there's some things I like, there's been some Star Wars series that are decent stuff, but mostly if it's not like nostalgic, I don't really care that much. And I guess this is somewhat nostalgic, but I was never watching Marvel cartoons as a kid. So,
Right.
it didn't have that. But like I said, man, trailers are one thing. And I guess we'll stop there because you're going to ask a different question. But the trailer did not actually have me that hooked. I mean, I thought the concept was really cool, but I wasn't all in.
Well, to quote another famous movie, the trailer had me at hello. But because like I said, it was my favorite comic book growing up. And I liked the idea of them doing the movies in a what if series. Now, I have said time and again while we were leading up to this series that I hope they go beyond the movies and start really telling some crazy stories. That being said, they haven't lacked in that department already, and it's only been a few episodes. So I'm hoping to get even further away from the MCU than just here.
Episode 3, we'll talk about that when we get there, but it leaves that possibility open that they could just continue the storyline because there's so many other what ifs that compound the what if, right?
Yep. Yeah. Paul, just from the trailers and everything.
Again, I'm the same way as you, John. You had me at hello on just the idea of a what if animated series. So, but I didn't expect it to be this good. I expected it to be good. Everything Marvel does lately is really good. But I was like Eric that I sort of expected not the same voice actors, and so you're like, oh god, you kind of wish you could get so and so, and then you get it, and you're like, wow, it's better than I expected.
Right. All right, cool. So then on that note, Paul, keep going since you're already there. The general opinion on the first episodes, rate it, and are you going to keep watching it? I think that's stupid. Okay.
Yeah. I rate them, scale of 10 Captain America shields, it's 10.
We're doing a scale of 6.5 today.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 4 to 3/4, it's a 4 to 3/4. It's great, and definitely going to keep watching. And I hope, like you just said, that they go sort of beyond what the Marvel movies have been. And I guess because now there's a season 2, they're going to do that, right? Because they'll be into stuff that hasn't been covered in the movies, or they can go beyond that stuff and get into other realms and other cool stuff.
Yep. Eric?
I think I'm with Paul, although my mind was more changed from trailer to watching the first few episodes. Actually, the first episode got me pretty hooked, and not to jump too far ahead, but the Doctor Strange episode had me on my seat. I'm like, ooh, this is really good. But we're not going to talk about that one today. But I think that 10 out of 10 or whatever scale we're doing, I'll give it all the points. I'll definitely keep watching it. And like I said before, it takes a lot for an animated series to really keep me going. There hasn't been too many that have done it, and it's easy on this one, no problem.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. the first 3 episodes had me like just ready for the entire series. Like I was ramped up from the word go. But to go back to a point that we've made repeatedly on this podcast is Marvel and the MCU just seem to know how to do it. And everything they do, just every time you think it might not be that great, it might be okay, whatever, they blow your mind. And they've done it to me again, even though I was really hoping for something mind blowing. I got it and more, you know. And then you go to like what Eric said, you got a couple of guys that are running this thing that is not really in their wheelhouse, but yet they're still knocking it out of the park. And that's something to be said with Kevin Feige and Marvel and everything, which again begs the question, if Kevin Feige and Marvel could take 2 guys that kind of not really big Marvel guys or whatever, maybe they secretly are, whatever, but and make a show like this, why the hell can't Warner Brothers do it? And for the love of God, why the fuck can Lucasfilm not do it? They finally got it right with Mandalorian, but holy shit. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you've got the blueprint right there in front of you. Mimic it. They're doing everything right.
Yeah,
So,
and in some ways, again, not to jump ahead too much, but episode 3, I mean, they're basically borrowing the idea behind Identity Crisis and putting it into a Marvel episode. It's not like DC doesn't have the content.
right.
DC has even done this. They essentially copied the idea of What If. They call it something different. I think they call it Elseworlds. But
Elseworlds, yep.
In the late 80s, early 90s, they started doing this, what if, not what if, they don't ask them, but Clark Kent as a baby, instead of crashing in Smallville, Middle America, USA, ends up in the Soviet Union. Right. He's the Soviet ultimate hero. What if when the Green Lantern, the dying Green Lantern, sends out the Ring to go find someone, instead of fighting Hal Jordan, it finds Bruce Wayne.
Right.
What, all of those things happened, and they started calling them Elseworlds, but the same idea, like, we'll just take the characters and put them in some different, little twist on their story and sort of go with it and see where you get.
They're amazing.
Yeah. But they can't do this. Like, and DC's even really good at, I think the thing that DC is better at than Marvel is the animated movies.
Yeah.
But they're not even doing this.
Yeah. I would love to see them get their cinematic universe correct and then start to do shit like this. I mean, they could do Elseworlds, but I mean, they don't have to do an Elseworlds, but they could do another.
They can't do this now, though. That's the thing. Like,
right.
They look like a cheap knockoff.
Yeah,
they would.
They already got beat doing their sort of team hero movie, right? Beaten by the Avengers, and so when you rush out Justice League because you're behind, you put out that movie, and then
shit. Right.
And now they can't, right? Because they look like total copiers.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying, though. If they go back to the drawing board on almost everything, it doesn't have to be everything. Suicide Squad was a good start. Maybe this new Batman movie will be good. You take a few of those and you start to build up your foundation again, and you just build it from scratch and just go.
You know
and
what?
In 2 years, you've got your universe set up. It takes a little while, but you have to build the foundation first.
You got me thinking, just making that comment, though. What DC has done over the last, what has it been, 20 years with the live action stuff is almost this concept. Not in the sense that they've replaced characters, but they've sort of retold the stories in different ways over and over. And the Batman is going to be, from what we've heard, a completely different story, right? I think the problem, though, is that relies on you loving like 5 characters, because that's all DC ever wants to talk about. Whereas in this What If season 1, we have like 26 fucking MCU characters, right? And they're all involved in different ways in a story. So
yeah. And that's only in a few episodes so far.
And Marvel has taken just not even B level characters, C level characters. Shang-Chi, right? Ant-Man, just characters that nobody knows. Like, you have to be a pretty big comic geek to have ever read an Ant-Man comic book, right? Or
Well,
lived
yeah,
in
and
the-
even if you've read Ant-Man, they took it further, right? Like Hank Pym is a villain in one of these what ifs.
right.
Right. Oh, okay, spoiler alert. We're into the spoilers now.
Is that a spoiler? I don't know.
Yeah, actually, kind of a big one, actually. But
It's in the description though.
Shang-Chi was Marvel's like, oh, Bruce Lee is a big cultural thing in the 70s. We need that character kind of in the comic books. How are we going to do that?
Yeah, and they made it so that everybody wants to see it.
Yeah, right.
And apparently, it's amazing. At some point, we'll get a review out for you guys.
And DC's got the most, the 5 most iconic comic book characters, and they constantly keep retelling that story. They're telling the same Batman story.
And that's what I've said. Marvel sold off the rights to their big ones, and they made an entire universe starting with Iron Man, which, again, I knew who he was. We all knew who he was, but not a lot of people knew who he was outside of like comic geeks. So to take but everybody knows Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Most people know who the Flash is, so man, take your head out of your ass and get it straight. Let's go. All right, let's get into the spoilers. So episode 1, what do we got, Eric?
So this is what if Captain Carter were the first Avenger? So I think for each of these I put a recommended watching, and John and Paul did not pre-approve these, so hopefully I've mostly got it right. But I think if you're going to come into this what if episode and you want to understand what the changes are, you have to have at least seen the first Avenger and the Avengers movie. That if you've seen that much, you can probably get it. If you want to be a total geek out nerd on Peggy Carter in particular, there is that series on ABC, which might be worth watching to get an idea of the character, but I think it's got a couple seasons.
Yeah.
But so the premise of this anyway is, and is there any others I missed maybe that you think you have to watch?
No, I would say definitely Captain America, the first Avenger, because that's what this entire story revolves around. And then the Avengers for kind of
for the team, for the Nick Fury team assembling, sort of what happens towards the end, I think. But other than that, you really don't have to have seen.
If you watched Agent Carter as well,
yeah,
it would help.
So the premise of this, if it's not obvious from the title on this one, is what if Peggy Carter had taken the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers? So Steve Rogers misses out in this episode. She decides to stay back. She runs in and gets the super serum when the shit hits the fan, and she becomes not Captain America, but the super soldier anyway. Right. And so, so each of these episodes has some sort of themes to it, and a shit ton of Easter egg sort of references. And that's why I give this watch beforehand list so you'll get it. But so I mean, the first thing is she comes out of that super serum, the machine or whatever, as like the most ridiculous super beast ever. It makes me laugh because it's even more like over the top than Steve Rogers, right? Like, I know he's skinny when he goes in and he comes out as a muscular dude, but she comes out like a foot taller than the dude next to her, and she's like totally fucking ripped. It cracks me up. and but the real theme of this episode, and it's not necessarily misplaced, and I don't want to call it contemporary because the whole point is this is back in World War II time frame, right? So there's like rampant sexism and misogyny all through this, where she's like, you're a woman, you can't be a super soldier, get the fuck out of here, So that plays out a lot, and she of course proves them wrong. And again, I don't want to say that's a contemporary issue. They're focusing on the time period it was, which was, very, very true, right? That women were volunteer nurses or whatever on the side. So
yeah, to that point, I love how like at one point in the beginning of the episode, that general tells her, "Look, you're lucky to even be in the room." And then later on, when she's got the super soldier serum and she's getting ready to plan the attack, he's in there. He goes to question her, and she's like, "You're lucky you're in the room." I was like, nice.
Yeah. Another big change they make in this episode is that she isn't Captain America. She's Captain Britain. I don't know what the hell it is. She's got the Union Jack on her. Yeah, she's got the Union Jack on her shield. It's got a different costume design that the other Stark did for her. What the hell's his name? Howard Stark.
Yeah.
But you know, they made her that costume because they were going to have her run around and do like USO tours or whatever and entertain the troops, not because she was a super soldier.
But that's what they did with Captain America in the beginning too, in First Avenger. So basically, they were following the same storyline just with her.
Yeah, and there's to that point, and I was going to mention that when we got down here, but there's a lot of parallels in this to Roger's story and her story, and they play it out in different ways, but it's a lot of the same themes that they put in there. That being the first one. What's really entertaining about this episode, though, is that Steve Rogers becomes her sidekick, basically. So Howard Stark makes
of Iron Man, really.
He gets kind of
that's what I say. Yeah, Howard Stark makes this Tesseract powered. They call it the Hydra Stomper suit, and it's like it's like a 40s era, what you would expect from like a mech suit back then or something, right? It reminds me of what was that, Iron Giant or whatever. It's like
he kind of crawls in it and like
and it looks like a combination of like you said, like an old 40s mech suit and like the Hulkbuster from Ultron, you know.
And it very much gives you the impression that it probably is made of iron, not like some newfangled metal or something. There's no adamantium in there or anything. You know. So I thought that was actually really cool, and I like that they left Steve Rogers as the sort of skinny, fragile kid, and that plays out a couple times in this episode, that he's, you know, a weak nobody, basically. He just has the suit, but
he's brave enough to at least get in it and show the same level of bravery that Steve Rogers always has, no matter in the rest of the story is powered by the super soldier serum, but it's his heart and his sort of inner fire that
which is what got him the gig with the super soldier serum in the original movies. He's the only one that threw himself on the grenade,
right?
You know, so and so they power this thing up with the Tesseract, right? Did you already say that?
Yeah, I said it was Tesseract powered suit.
Yeah. But which was interesting, you know. Like, it's a battery. I know what to do with it. That's not a battery, Howard, but we'll figure that out later.
No, I actually the fight scenes in this too, just going slightly off the themes and topics. Well, this is a theme, I guess, but I mean, they fucking wreck shit in this. It's not even like MCU wreck shit. It's like they're killing motherfuckers, they're blowing them up, they're dropping grenades in tanks. Like, they do not play. You know, and maybe giving some leeway to the
head off the shield.
Yeah.
First fight scene, she flung that fucking shield at that dude's face.
Well, again, not to jump ahead too far, we'll do it some other week, but motherfuckers get decapitated in this series, and you will see it on screen.
Yep.
And so that's a little bit of a deviation from the sort of MCU where even a little droplets of blood are kind of rare, you know?
Yeah.
But they definitely wreck people. You know, on that note, I'm going to skip ahead a minute, but while we're talking about Steve too, I noticed something in this that would sort of give an opening for some sort of future what if, and that's that when they were doing the train scene thing, which is again an echo off the Captain America storyline, but it was Steve Rogers, not Bucky, that fell. And and that was kind of the precipice for Bucky to become the Winter Soldier. And in this timeline, that doesn't happen. And so I thought when I saw that, like, Steve was going to come back as the Winter Soldier, and they were sort of like doing some kind of weird lead in for it. But of course, that's not what happened. But Bucky's not the Winter Soldier. Like, how much does that change in this timeline, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, even the Captain America story is already dead at this point, but without having Bucky there, even as a opposition to Peggy, I guess now, I mean, it just leads to a whole different setup.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of shit that doesn't happen. I mean, he's there the entire time. So does that mean Tony Stark's parents don't get killed? You know, there's all kinds of shit in there that you can just spin off of.
Yep, exactly. So Peggy does end up sacrificing herself towards the end of this episode, right? The tentacle monster is coming through the portal, and she ends up sacrificing her life, or at least it appears so. When she goes in the portal, it closes and everything blows up. But then towards the end of the episode, where Nick Fury appears and he ends up bringing Peggy back into the present day, right? And it's sort of again a reiteration of the Steve Rogers in a different way, but the Steve Rogers story of coming back to the present day from the past or whatever.
Yeah, so instead of falling into the ice and waking up and realizing 30 years later, she comes back to that portal, same age, and he, he says it's been 70 years. She asks, "Where's Steve?" And he says, Cap, it's been 70 years. And then, so she says kind of the same thing that he does, like, I owed him a dance or whatever, or
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's very reminiscent of what Steve Rogers did in the MCU.
Yeah.
I mean, he does that, he comes back, and then he has regrets about it, right? Or not regrets, but things he missed, right? The love of his life. And of course, in the MCU, he goes back. So now that leaves an opening in the What If universe of what does she do now,
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was a pretty good first episode. It didn't have me like 100% hooked at that point, but I was like, actually, this is pretty freaking cool.
the way it followed enough beats for me to appreciate it, but at the same time, I was like, if every story is going to follow that many beats, I might get bored.
Yeah.
Then you go into episode 2, and well, they threw that shit out the window. So
yeah. So
good.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just moving on to episode 2. Unless
yeah.
You guys
So
episode 1.
No, I'm good on that one.
All right.
Now,
episode 2. What if T'Challa became Star-Lord? And so the recommended watching before this would definitely be Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, and Avengers Endgame. So the premise of this one is it's T'Challa who's picked up by Yondu as a child instead of Quill. I like how you wrote, and Thanos sees the error of his ways, mostly. That is one of my favorite jokes in this episode because it comes back repeatedly.
Yeah, and that's why just the pre-reading or the pre-watching, that's why you can't just watch Black Panther or just watch Guardians of the Galaxy, because the Thanos themes in this, sort of his plot ideas and the way his character acts in this is totally based around his in-game follies, right?
Yeah, I think
the one scene
Infinity War too.
Yeah, they're sitting at it looks like they're sitting at kind of a bar, and Thanos is talking to somebody, and she goes, "Bro, that's basically genocide."
Yeah, right.
He goes,
Yeah,
it's like this sort of,
efficient
because you just sort of hear this sort of ambient noise, and then it sort of clues into their conversation. Or she's like, "Bro, that's essentially genocide." He goes, "Not really, because it's completely random."
Yeah, and it comes up again too because somebody basically backs up into him, and you realize he's there with the Ravagers, and they're like, "What?" And they say something about like, "Weren't you like trying to wipe out half the universe, whatever?" And he says, "I still." And so, somebody else on the team goes, "Yeah, but he had a change of heart." And he's, basically T'Challa talked him out of it and explained how we could help. And Thanos is like, "I still say my way was efficient." So yeah, all right, where are we at?
So themes in this episode, or shit they've changed, whatever we're gonna call this, I don't know. Karath, what the hell is his name? The Pursuer, the Kree. Yeah. So he's like completely infatuated with Star-Lord in this, and that basically
because this one starts off the same way as Guardians of the Galaxy, where Star-Lord is walking in to get the Power Stone, and when he gets it, Karath shows up with 2 of his guys, and T'Challa turns around and he's like, "You're Star-Lord," which is complete opposite to the Peter Quill Star-Lord, where
that's it. Yeah.
"Who are you?" He's like, "I'm Star-Lord." He's like, "Who?" Star-Lord, man.
Yeah, and then they play out this whole thing too, where they're doing the fight scene or whatever, and he keeps saying shit like, "Oh, classic Star Lord," like he's known across the galaxy, and it's not Peter Quill's Star Lord anymore, right?
Right.
And also the way he fights too, like he fights like he's still the Black Panther in this, like he's wicked agile, he's doing like crazy ass flip kicks and shit. It's like the much better Star Lord, the Star Lord Peter Quill wished he was.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's the Star Lord that Peter Quill envisioned himself as.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's like this great smuggler, thief, whatever. And T'Challa's got that reputation around the galaxy.
Yeah, and so I think the other big thing they reveal early in this episode is that the Ravagers aren't like nasty thieves who just go steal whatever anymore. That's not to say they don't steal stuff, but they're doing things like more for good. They're like anti-heroes or something.
Yeah, they're more benevolent than they were.
Yeah, and that really plays out with Yondu throughout this episode, where he's just like completely flipped. His relationship with T'Challa in this is what probably he wished his relationship with Peter Quill was, where it's like a real like father-son kind of thing. Even when it plays through and he finds out he lied to him, there's still that connection, and he still saves him at the end. So they definitely played it out a lot different with the Ravagers, and it kind of makes the Ravager name seem silly, but I guess they already had it at this point. So we already talked about Thanos. The other thing in this is that Nebula, who is one of the few ones. No, actually, no, it was voiced by the same actress. Never mind, ignore that. But she's like not really the cybernetic, hateful character that she was in the MCU, right? I guess because Thanos didn't rule over her and control her and murder.
Abuse the hell out of her.
Yeah. So and of course Thanos is part of the Ravagers, which you already said, which is another big twist in this one. And then so they play out this storyline, which goes. It's like a twist on the Guardians of the Galaxy storyline, where they go meet the Collector, but they're going to meet the Collector to obtain this whatever the fuck it was, Embers of Genesis or something.
Yeah.
It's a MacGuffin. It doesn't really matter what the hell it is, but they're going to get this thing that they think they can do a bunch of good with. They're going to terraform planets and make food for the world or for the universe or something, right? So nobody will starve ever again. But the Collector in this is totally flipped around, right? And it's probably the more sensible portrayal of the Collector, who has a bajillion cool ass gadgets from all these people. But in this universe, I mean, he uses them to great effect, and he has some really cool Easter egg stuff in this. He's got like the headpiece from Ragnarok with the crazy ass things, and he's got Thor's hammer, he's got Captain America's shield, and again, this opens up a whole bunch more of what ifs, like how the fuck did he get all this shit?
Yeah, what if the Collector destroyed the Avengers?
yeah, pretty wild. And he has probably, I don't even know, I didn't take time to pause it and look back, but he has like a bajillion people, maybe superheroes, maybe not, like trapped in these little whatever stasis boxes,
which he did in Guardians.
But I mean, this is like
you saw a dark elf from Thor 2, which you saw both of them in here too. But the key to the Collector in this episode, in Guardians, they kind of allude to the fact that he's not to be fucked with. And here you see why. Because like you said, he's a badass and he uses all of his shit to fuck your world up.
Yep.
Good, where they just talk about it, and not saying Benicio del Toro didn't do an amazing job as him in the different movies he was in, because he did. He was great. But you don't get the menacing
definitely not
vibe from him. You get it here.
Yeah, and he's quite a bit more like buff looking and stuff too. Like they made him more formidable on top of having all the gadgets, He didn't look weak.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if he had He-Man's power sword somewhere in that fucking.
Yeah. So after all that stuff plays out and they get what they're going to do, they get what they're going to get from the collector. T'Challa finds out that Yondu had lied to him all these years, and he finds out about Wakanda and his father's still alive.
Ships, yeah.
Yeah, and so he ends up going back and sort of, reunion with his father and all this. Even just to your earlier point, even the king is voiced by the same guy that voiced T'Chaka in the fucking movie. Like they just went all the way. Like, yeah, why not? We can get him.
And I think Okoye is too. I mean,
Okoye is too. Yep.
2 lines in
Okoye.
this thing, but yeah.
Yep. Same person. You're absolutely right. So of course, I think I skipped the part where Yondu is the one that rescues T'Challa in the end, and he had no reason to go back, but he just did because, and that's the father-son relationship that they're putting out. And then at the what do you call it, the epilogue, the end of this thing, anyway, you find Peter Quill is sweeping floors at a Dairy Queen or some shit, right? Because he was never abducted.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Ego walks in.
Yeah, which means the Ego storyline, I guess in theory, could still play out, right? That's because there's nobody to stop or warn Peter Quill or to stop that from happening. So
Right. Yep.
Yet another what if.
Yeah, awesome episode.
But nothing brings the what ifs. Do you guys have anything more on episode 2?
No.
I really like this one. This is the one where I was hooked 100% to. And actually, it happened right at the beginning when it was T'Challa as Star-Lord. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then he was like a super badass. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm down. Let's go. But all right, so episode 3 is the one that really sort of brings out the compounding what ifs, right? Because the first 2 episodes were in a lot of ways just personality swaps, right? You put one character into another's shoes. Episode 3 didn't go there. Episode 3 was the what if the events that happened, the people are the same, but the events that happened were completely fucking jacked out of whack from what we told, right? And so this is a very different telling, and this opens a lot more what ifs. So I think for this one, you pretty much have to watch everything Avengers. And by everything Avengers, I mean you also need to watch all the Thor movies. I mean, there's just so many different references in this one.
You got to watch all the original movies: Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of where you start this whole thing, is where he's hanging out in the donut and shit, and Nick Fury and Natasha come to get him.
You have to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yep. You have to watch all that shit.
I mean, you really have to pretty much.
You have to watch Captain Marvel. You have to watch.
And yeah, everything. Now, and
this one is the point is on this one, you really have to know the MCU story because they throw a lot in here, and they use minor characters to fuck up the timeline, but they also use minor events to fuck up the timeline from different movies.
Yeah. Like I said, because it's just that diner scene in Iron Man 2 when he's coming off a bender, and Nick Fury comes to talk to him with Black Widow, and they're sitting in the diner, and it's when he's got that sickness from his arc reactor. In the movie, Black Widow shoots him up with something that's gonna, like Nick Fury says in both the series and the movie, it'll just take the edge off, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like counteract what's going on with him, and he collapses over dead. And the thing I like about this is it takes a little bit of things that happen before they finally like clue you into what's going on, and then they go back and they show you how everything happened. So he drops dead, and it's like at the same time while they're trying to figure out what the fuck's going on with him, Thor comes looking for his hammer in Mexico, and you see Nick Fury and Clint Barton, right? So the same thing, sends him up into the tower to keep an eye on him. Barton tells him, give me the word, and then just shoots an arrow at him and kills Thor, right? So he drops dead. Then the other really cool callback is Natasha goes to find the Hulk, but she's at the college from the Edward Norton movie, right? Because that glass hallway in between the library or whatever, when he's supposed to be in there with Betty in the movie, he's in there with Natasha. And the same events happen. The army comes to get him and starts shooting gas in there, right? Same exact events. He comes out, hulks out, but then all of a sudden he keeps hulking out and blows up.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck has happened there? And then Hawkeye is all depressed or whatever because he's like, I didn't fire the arrow, I never missed. And then they go to check on him and he's dead. You're like, what the fuck is going on? So Widow goes to investigate and realizes she's being watched. Hurries up to try to get a voice message to call Nick Fury. Leaves him a message. Says it's all about hope. And it clicked almost immediately for me. Like as soon as she said that, she said it twice, and I was like, "Oh, she's not talking about hope, the feeling or the emotion. She's talking about Hope, the person. She's talking about Hope Van Dyne, right?" And that's when you learn Hope Van Dyne became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and supposedly died. She was killed by the Winter Soldier, and Hank Pym lost his fucking mind. That's what Nick Fury goes to her grave, and Pym is there.
Yeah,
She should
got
have been
a lot of balls showing up here.
She was
Yeah,
on the mission that Romanoff should have been on.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yes. So he's like, "You got her killed," and Fury's like, "She was an agent, and you know, she knew the risks, but she'll be sorely missed." Whatever. Pym's like, "Yeah, that's not good enough." And then that's when you flash back to it was Pym all along killing everybody. It was like he was in that little syringe that Black Widow hit Tony Stark with, right? Or he put something in it, or he was in it. I forget what. Went into his bloodstream and ripped apart his arc reactor. I forget how the fuck that happened. But he flicked Hawkeye's finger to make him shoot the arrow. That's why Hawkeye was like, "I didn't shoot the arrow." I forget what he did to the Hulk, but he got in there with something. Oh, I think he injected him with Pym particles or something to make him blow up.
yeah.
And then he killed Black Widow at the end there. So there's a whole bunch of that shit in there that like he kept killing off the Avengers. So you never have the Avengers. Now the coolest thing about this too was he's in the Yellow Jacket armor.
Yeah.
Right. So like he never lost that to the other guy. He's running around with his Yellow Jacket killing everybody. When he attacks Fury, he goes back and forth really quick from regular size to tiny, and Fury fights him off like really well.
Yeah, he looks like in the Matrix when
Neo, Lawrence Fishburne.
When Lawrence Fishburne's blocking Neo's attacks. Just like,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah. He looked exactly like that. We just got to the point where Nick Fury was fighting Hank Pym in the graveyard, and we were like, he looked like Morpheus in the Matrix. So he was just blind. He was amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then he doesn't kill him, right? They take him away, or I can't remember. He beats him and they take him away, right?
I think so, yeah.
I can't remember the very end of it. But yeah, so that was the whole episode was Hank Pym killed all the fucking Avengers. And you're like, what the fuck? You know, so before we get into the other what if scenarios, what did you guys think of the episode?
I like this one. It was very different. It was almost like I had no idea what the fuck was going on. And when the reveal was that it was Hank Pym, I was like, what? You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But I mean, also the theme is cool of killing off the most important Avengers pretty much before there is an Avengers. So
yeah. And I think Eric made the point earlier that this one is not just, well, what if instead of this person instead of Agent Carter is now sort of Captain America or T'Challa is Star-Lord. This is characters don't swap places. It's just the events change in a massive way.
Yeah,
Huge,
and
massive different changes, right?
yeah, and what I forgot to mention is the end result of all this is pretty much that Loki ends up ruling the earth. I mean, his plans are successful.
Yeah, because he
It
showed
takes
up,
him no time to take over because the Avengers are gone.
Yeah.
but he also shows up um, with the mission of one of you insects killed my brother. So now he's there for revenge, So, which now, at the same time, it probably would have been, I don't know. Either way, he was going to come to Earth, but that was his motivation. So even his motivation changed.
Yeah.
But this episode represents like everything that I used to love about the What If comics, where like I used to say like I'd read episodes or issues where they just fucking kill everybody, and you wouldn't realize, you had no idea what was going on with these issues, and you'd have like a different team at the end of it or some shit, and they were always really cool. You'd always see like, oh, okay, like half the X-Men got killed, and at the very end of the issue, you see like a new team of X-Men made up of like all kinds of like evil mutants or whatever, because their lives have all changed because of that. So, and that's exactly what this episode was. So I was like, this is exactly what I wanted out of this series.
Or in comics, it's always like one of these Avengers is going to die. It's like Jarvis the butler, and you're like, come on.
Yeah.
Actually kill one of them, and you can't do that in the comic series without major sort of things to happen, and then you've got to reset and do the whole thing. But in this is perfect to do it, right? One shot, just what would happen.
Yeah. So Eric, you wrote down a bunch of like in this universe.
Yeah, this was a bit of a thought vomit, but I mean, so in this scenario that happens where Loki is successful and Pym murders all the Avengers, so the Tesseract is still on Earth. Thanos never would have found Loki and sort of enlisted him as a whatever pawn in his game, right? There was no Ultron, which means there was no Vision. Even if he did somehow manage to get all the stones and do his snap, there's no Hulk to turn it around. There's no Iron Man to turn it around. There's nothing. And then with no Thor, what happens with Ragnarok?
Right.
Yeah, no, Asgard doesn't disappear.
Yeah, right. And then just asking questions. Where the fuck are all the sorcerers? Where's Strange and his group in this? Where's Wakanda now? Like, do any of them even get involved at this point? I mean, like, none of the right events happen to engage them. So there's just so many different ways you could run off on a tangent with this. And again, this is just my thought vomit in 5 minutes. But I mean, there's just so many different things. It's like, even just killing one Avenger, you could ask 10 questions about how the MCU plays out. Fuck, they killed 6 of them.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier about, continuing the what if storylines. I mean, this is a perfect episode to do that. You have so many branches in the timeline, if you will, from all these guys being dead that you can go anywhere.
Yeah. And hopefully now, like you said, with them doing continuing 9 episode seasons, they'll do that because they have done it in the past in like What If and whatever. Like they have gone back to previous issues and like, picked up another story from there because of, and they kind of like recap, like, okay, this is what happened in that other one. Now here's where we're at now. It could be fun. All right. So overall, first 3 episodes, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I like the character swaps. I really like the completely different timeline, completely different set of events. Looking forward to the rest of it, and just seeing where they're going to take this and see how, if they're going to keep doing these sorts of slightly different stories, or if they're going to sort of mess everything up in a kind of a big way, and then just, okay, that's it. Start over and tell a different story.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, I'm 100% down. This is a really cool concept. Even if they just do sort of one-shot storytelling, I think it's actually really cool. And you know me, I'm a geek lover for Easter egg stuff, and you know, they put so many of them in all this stuff from the MCU, but even to some extent, they're sort of borrowing little things from the comics here and there. I think it's really fucking cool. I'll definitely watch it through.
Yeah, I can't wait for this Wednesday, and that way we can review 4, 5, and 6. Because I mean, shit, it's rolling by quick. I don't know how the hell they're getting me. My timeline just keeps running faster and faster. Before you know it, we're already going on episode 6 now. I love this show. And Marvel, if you're listening ever, after you introduce the X-Men into the MCU, use one of these what if episodes to introduce the Exiles and do a completely different spin-off cartoon about the Exiles going around from world to world. That'd be awesome. So, all right. Anybody got anything else last minute?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's worth mentioning just because we're a little behind the times. The next 2 episodes that are out right now, what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? Really cool episode. The name doesn't really tell you what's happening, but it's a really fucking cool episode.
Yep.
And then number 5, which might be the best of the whole bunch, what if zombies?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Paul
And then,
Ketchum.
yeah, episode 6 will be out Wednesday. That's the 15th. Don't know the name yet because they haven't released it officially, but do know that it includes T'Challa and Tony Stark. So we'll see where they go with that new timeline.
Sweet. Yeah, I have no idea. I honestly think I've seen almost everything from the trailer in these 4 or 5 episodes that have already been out. So that means we've got like 17, 18 more to go that I have no idea what they're doing. So it's going to be great. All right. Paul, you got anything else?
No. One of these better be about Mephisto.
Love of God.
We're getting him somewhere, goddammit.
Mephisto better be coming. All right. Well, in that case, you guys like, subscribe, ring a bell. Let us know what you think about the What If series. If you like it as much as we do, hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and but do it in this reality because it's already hard enough to see if you guys are out there.
What if a bunch of you actually emailed us?
That'll be what if you actually emailed us. There's an alternate universe where we're all getting rich over this podcast.
We're the Joe Rogan of that timeline.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, in that case, good night, Tony.
Good night, badass Agent Carter. Captain Carter.
Good night, Chadwick Boseman, forever, but you will be missed. Hope they don't replace him.
There you go.